Welcome everybody to this interview. My name is Patryk Wezowski, and on the line from Hawaii we have today Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen is a respected keynoter and a seminar leader in the fields of personal growth, inspiration, human relations and achievement of work-life balance. He conducts life mastery trainings around the world, and he's the author of 22 popular inspirational books and CDs. He's also a contributing writer for the New York Times #1 best-selling series Chicken Soup for the Soul, and his books have been translated into more than 24 foreign languages. Welcome, Alan.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you very much to you. Now, this interview is about sustainable growth strategies. And my first question to you is, what's your definition of sustainable growth?
I have a four-pronged approach to that, if I may share it. There are four elements. One is vision, the other is passion, integrity, and service. So my sense is that there are two levels of success. One is material and one is spiritual or inner peace, and I believe that you cannot really separate the two. So I always encourage people to work from inside out and be sure that they're in integrity with themselves and their passion, and they extend that through service to the community. And in my experience with my business and the many business leaders I work with, this never fails. It's a perfect formula if you can practice it.
So if somebody is listening to this interview right now, after listening to your insight, what's the first strategy that person can use to grow his sustainable growth?
The first one would be to check in with your vision. Do you have a clear vision of what you'd like to be doing? Ralph Waldo Emerson said that if you see a row of crooked peas, it means that the seeds were planted crookedly. So when you line up the seeds, the plant grows in a straightforward manner. So I would spend a lot of time, if I were CEO, sitting down with myself, my staff, my trusted colleagues, and asking the question, what would make me feel successful as an individual if I were to be on my deathbed and look back on my life? What would I call success? And from that vision, you actually build a platform and you have a framework for moving ahead. And you can tell your vision when you hit a note of passion. In other words, when you feel excited about your vision. A vision should come from inside out. It should not be one that was taught to you or forced to you or coerced to you in any way. It should be something that absolutely excites you to do it, and you do it because you want to do it, and of course you want to make money, of course you want to be successful. But one interesting question to ask is, what would I be doing even if I were not receiving a lot of money for it? And the paradox, Patrick, is that once you follow that joy and excitement and passion, the money has a way of showing up. But if the passion and joy and vision is not there, money has a way of staying at a distance.
Okay, I understand it very well. But if somebody is manager of a company of 100 persons and
Yes.
he sits together with the management team, constructing that vision full of passion, how to motivate all the 99 other persons in the company?
Well, that's a really easy question to answer because I see it a lot. If the management team has passion, then by the law of attraction, one of two things will happen. Either you will draw forth the passion from the people on your lower echelons, or they will leave, or you will send them away, and you will attract people who have passion. Really, all success is energetic more than it is logistical. And I see it time and time again that there's a trickle-down factor from the top. If the leader is bored, if the leader is bugged, if the leader's life is not working, that rots the company. There's a phrase in Hawaii that says that a fish rots from the head down. It's not a pleasant idea, but in other words, when the leader is not aligned with his or her joy, so then that kind of infiltrates the company. But when the leader and the management team are aligned with their vision and their passion and their integrity and their service, it's almost impossible for the company not to have that. I'm a great believer in the law of attraction, and law of attraction says like attracts like. And so if you're living your vision, then you automatically inspire and attract other people who live theirs.
And how does that transform in business terms in money?
Well, passion is the greatest money magnet that I know. And in fact, in my own business, we have lulls and ups and downs. I've been doing what I'm doing for about 35 years. And of course, you have your high moments and your big successful moments, and you have your down times. And whenever our income starts to dry up or our attendance at our programs lowers, I step back with my wife or my partners and my staff, and I say, okay, what are we doing now that does not have life force in it? In other words, we may have started a program 7 or 10 years ago, but perhaps we're getting bored with it. Perhaps it's becoming a rote, mechanistic type of thing. Perhaps we'd really rather not be doing it. Perhaps we're doing it just because it's been successful. And then we ask the question, if we were really honest, what will we let go of because it doesn't thrill us anymore? And if we're really honest, what will we start doing because it's our next step of passion and joy and delight? And I swear to you, Patryk, on everything I know, that every time I have done something new because I really want to do it and it seems like the right next step, suddenly people show up, money starts flowing in, and then if I keep doing something I'm bored or I don't believe in anymore, I just don't like anymore, the money disappears. So it's an amazing thing to watch the relationship between passion and money because it's as real to me as any other relationship I know.
All right, great. Now, if that company has, for example, a whole department of salespeople, which most companies have, they have to do the most regular tasks every single day again. Contact customers, call them up, hear no on the phone, and all over again with all the administration together. If you want to have that sustainable growth and a strategy attached to that where people have to do all the time again and again the same, how do you put that life, passion and vision in every day from day to day?
Another excellent question. Thank you very much. What I've discovered is that there's no such thing as a boring job. It's attitudes that are boring. And so I have seen people do very boring things and find very creative ways to do them. For example, one day some friends and I were exiting Chicago airport parking lot, and we had to go through a toll booth to pay the toll for the parking fee. And it was a cold winter's night, and everybody was bored and tired. And when we got to the toll booth, we found a handsome Italian man with gray hair, and as he was handing everybody their change from the toll, he was singing La Traviata opera. and all the women in the car swooned, and we had a good laugh, and we clapped and thanked him, and we went off into the night. Now, this was and later I saw a survey that asked people, what is the most boring job in the world that you can think of? And their answer was toll collector. So it's kind of an odd example, and I'm not suggesting that your salespeople necessarily sing opera, but I am suggesting that there are ways to take mundane situations and have fun with them. And if you can find that unique attitude that uplifts you, three things will happen. One is you will uplift your clients. 2, you will enjoy it. And 3, success will come.
In your book, Alan, in your book, Relax into Wealth, you give some possibilities how to be relaxed on one side and at the same time be open for that income to flow in. But if somebody is running a company, has a lot on his to-do list and is running from one fire to the other one, and at the same time with the economic recession he's low on the cash flow, how does that person keep that relaxed state into wealth flowing?
Well, it's really interesting, Patrick. I had a client who was the CEO of a hardware company, and he was working 6 days a week into long hours into the night, and he was stressed, and he had physical symptoms, and his profit margin was decreasing. And he said, "What should I do?" I said, "Well, let me suggest to you to take one more day off a week and do something that does nothing but fill you energetically." And he said, "Well, I can't do it. I'm too busy." I said, Well, do this as an experiment. You came to me for coaching. Perhaps you'll trust me. I suggest that you take one more day off a week. Don't answer emails. Don't do your cell phone. Fish or play or swim or go to the movies or go to dinner or do something that's just soul nourishing, if you will. And he agreed to do it. And I saw him a month later, and he looked great. And he said, "That was the best advice I ever received." He said, "Because on that one day off, when I created space, I received more insights and more creative ideas and more refreshment, so that when I went back and I worked my other 5 days, I am now more productive in those 5 days than I was in 6, and my company is starting to turn around." And he said that there's a law of diminishing returns, which is that after a certain point, working harder will not yield you any more effective results. There's a point at which either one day off a week or small breaks during the day, whether it's taking a walk or sitting in the sun or listening to some music or just calling and talking to somebody you care about, those breaks are so energizing that they actually contribute to your success during the period that you're working. In fact, in the U.S. now, I don't know if they're doing this in Europe, but some large corporations are now purposely turning off all computers for 15 minutes out of every 2 hours or so, and they're forcing the people to rest and relax. And at first the employees went crazy because they were addicted to sitting in front of the computer. But they're finding overall that these brief periods of respite from hard work actually increase effectiveness over the long run.
Great. Well, if somebody is convinced by, well, okay, I'll go for that, then how does one identify and become conscious of that point of diminishing results?
Oh, that's easy. You start to notice your mental and emotional and physical symptoms. For example, I write every day, and I notice that after about an hour and a half of writing, I start to get fuzzy, and my thoughts do not come so clearly. So I have become aware of that point when my mind starts to get fuzzy, and now I have trained myself to get up and sit outside or play with my dogs or listen to music or do something fun for 15 to 30 minutes, and then I return. Now, lots of people also have physical symptoms that show up. For example, you get a cough, or your back hurts, or you have indigestion, or you get a headache, and those signs are actually warning signs that you've just stepped over the edge. Now, unfortunately, most people try to override them, and they power through them, or they take a drug, or they work harder, or they do something to deny the symptom, but that symptom is actually a gift. It's a warning sign saying, okay, now is the time for you to relax. On the emotional level, people start to get irritable, they get testy, they pick fights, they start to feel depressed. And in my experience, Patrick, all those things are signals that it's time for you to renew yourself. And I guarantee you they work. I've been doing this for 35 years, and to the extent that I do this, it works, and sometimes I don't, and then I get sick. So heed the signals when they show up. They're actually gifts.
Alan, you've been speaking about coaching a person in a company, or sitting together with them to find their passion and their vision. How do you deal in a company with non-coachable persons who are not open to do this kind of things?
Well, my experience, Patrick, is that there's no such thing as a non-coachable person. I've been counseling people in many walks of life for many years, and if I believe that I can find a place in each person that is coachable. And if I am honesty, of course, is required. You have to, honesty and sensitivity are required. You have to be direct, but you also have to be compassionate. And, if somebody's completely non-coachable, maybe they don't belong in the company. I mean, that's an option too. But in my experience, Patrick, that's the exception. I think that if you sit down and you have a one-to-one and you look the person in the eye and you ask them, what's going on? Why is your work not working? Why is your life not working? Why are you resistant? How can I support you? How can we be on the same team? I've never found somebody that is not amenable to that. I think it's more a matter of approach and perspective and attitude than any particular technique.
Okay, and this perspective and attitude also connected with one's personal happiness. How is that connected to wealth?
Well, wealth, there are two elements to wealth. I teach a prosperity seminar, and I said there's basically two principles. One is that we live in an abundant universe, that the nature of life is complete and total abundance. My book, Relax into Wealth, explains this in detail. If you go on a beach and you look at the grains of sand, or you look at the ocean, or you look at the stars in the sky at night, or you look at the leaves in the forest, you will see that the universe has created an absolute, total, not just abundance, but extravagance. And so the next question is, well, why don't we all experience abundance? And the answer is quite simple, but it takes some practice. Each of us receives and experiences abundance to the amount that we allow it. Most people have a fallacy about creating abundance. Abundance is not something you manufacture. Abundance is something that you allow. And so usually when abundance is not happening, there's some form of fear or resistance or some belief system that says the money's not out there. For example, in America, during the 20th century, the two greatest architectural achievements were the Golden Gate Bridge and the Empire State Building. And both of them were created at the height of the Great Depression. They both rose in the early 1930s and were completed in the mid-1930s when lots of people were standing in lines for bread. So the question is, how did those two magnificent architectural achievements come about at a time when money was in the least flow? And the answer is that the developers of both of those projects had a belief system that said, I can do this, and my personal economy does not depend on the economy at large. And that's a big stretch for most people, because most people believe that there is, quote, the economy, the U.S. economy, the world economy. But the truth is that even when things are bad, there are certain people who thrive gloriously. And even when things are great, there are certain people who flounder gloriously. So the question is, what is your belief system? If you believe the economy is in bad shape and my business has to suffer, well, guess what? That'll happen. But you can create what I call a bubble economy or a pocket economy, in which you look for signs and strategies for increase even when other people are decreasing. Now, you have to be very firm in your belief, otherwise other people argue you down. But so, I know I'm giving a long answer, but the bottom line is that personal belief, expectation, and attitude supersede mass consciousness if your energy is strong enough, and there is always abundance if you're willing to allow it and stand by it and believe in it.
This abundance and this creating of that attraction, how do you make that, instead of chasing after clients, that what practical steps can one do within his company to have those clients attracted to the company?
Another great question. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying your questions. Well, the law of attraction says like attracts like, and there's another law that says that, and this may be challenging to some of our listeners, but that struggle is not required. In my mastery, I do a life mastery training, and one of the principles is let it be easy struggle is not required. Now, you have to read between the lines here. I'm not saying that work is not required. I'm not saying that effort is not required. I'm not saying that action is not required. But I'm saying that if you are fighting with somebody to become your client, or you have to wrestle with somebody to get a deal, I never do that. I just I just do not want to waste my time. One of our other maxims is work with the willing. Work with the willing. And I have a Japanese client who asked me, he's a dentist, and he said, I love tennis, and I met these business guys, and they love golf, and I think maybe I can get a business deal out of them if I play golf with them. He said, but there's two problems. He said, one is I hate golf, and I don't really like these guys. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you're fighting an uphill battle. I said, why not consider it this way? I said, imagine that you meet somebody in a social situation when you like him, and you both discover you like tennis. So you said, let's play tennis, and you play tennis. And in the locker room, you discover that maybe you have something in common business, and you decide, well, let's try this business venture together. I said, how much more enjoyable is that than playing a game you hate with people you don't like? Now, I know a lot of us have taught that you have to work with people you don't like, you have to struggle. But my experience, Patryk, is that the more you move with a positive flow of energy and you do not try to buck people you don't like or wrestle with people to get their sales, I have people show up at my door and in my classrooms that I work with and I enjoy, and I've experienced a great degree of success. I'm very grateful for it. And my motto has been not to fight for it. So if you can remove that struggle and fighting and wrestling mentality from your repertoire, I know it's a radical approach, but maybe in times like these we need a radical approach. So that's my suggestion.
Great, thank you very much, Alan. If people who are listening to this interview would like to know more about your insights for sustainable growth strategies or one of the dozens of books that you've written, where can they get some more information about you?
They can go to my website. It says alancohen.com, AlanCohen.com. All my books are there, and I also do a life mastery training in Hawaii, and I also do a life coach training in the U.S. mainland. So if anybody feels drawn to come and work with me, I would be delighted to welcome you.
Thank you very much for your time, Alan.
And thank you, Patryk. To speak at the national conference of a large corporation, and they had all their top, the best, their most successful salespeople. There's about 100 people, and they invited me to speak on work-life balance. And so I gave a PowerPoint presentation, and to tell you the truth, I felt a little intimidated because this was an international corporation, and they had military contracts, and I felt like I was a bit out of my zone. But I figured, well, they invited me, and, I'll do my best. So I gave this PowerPoint demonstration, which was okay. But then at the very end, I gave them 3 short 5-minute exercises. One was kind of a guided visualization where I took them through a relaxation exercise, and the other was an appreciation exercise where I invited them to walk around and say thank you to the people that they work with. So they did these 2 exercises, and at the end, the CEO came to me glowing, shaking my hand. He said, this is the best lecture we ever had. He said, I said, we weren't that impressed with the lecture. He says, but the exercises changed our whole company. And he said, we want you again next year.
Great.
And so when I got out of the intellectual zone and I got into the experiential zone, that made a big difference to their company.
Great. Well, I'm actually one of the very few pioneers